guys, we are in Hanoi. We are going to be here for a couple of days. Tomorrow we're going on a Halong Bay cruise. It's an overnight cruise, so we've got actually like a day and a half in Hanoi, which should be enough to see most of the most important landmarks in the city. In Hanoi, you can either grab one of the taxis that are just waiting outside the gate. I'm not sure about the price, but you can also grab a Grab. It's an alternative to Uber here, and it's very affordable. And funny enough, if you have internet, of course, you can ask for it. Funny enough, they have like some really explicit instructions on where to stand when you ask for it, which is really cool.
It took us around 45, almost 50 minutes to get to our hotel. Our hotel was located in a pretty touristic area where most tourists end up staying. So it's actually pretty far from the touristic city center. And I wanted to tell you a little bit more about Hanoi. Even though Hanoi is the capital of Vietnam, it's actually not the largest city. Its population is about 5 or 6 million, and Ho Chi Minh City, which is almost twice bigger with a population of almost 10 million, is the largest city in Vietnam. But Hanoi is more historical, and it dates to the 3rd century BC, and it even used to be part of Han China at some point. It's also one of the most visited cities in Southeast Asia. And there is a reason for that. First of all, it's located pretty close to Halong Bay, which is exceptionally beautiful. And secondly, in Hanoi, there are so many beautiful buildings and just generally so many attractions and things to do, and even a UNESCO heritage site. Our first night in Hanoi we spent at a hotel called La Sinfonia del Rey, and unfortunately we had a really bad experience, and I won't recommend it. We also really wanted to try egg coffees explicitly in Hanoi. We tried it before in Ho Chi Minh City and we liked it, but since it was invented in Hanoi in 1946, we absolutely had to try it in Hanoi as well. So we found this place called Dinh Coffee, which was located really close to our hotel, and ordered 2 coffees there, and they were great.
So the entrance to this cafe is a bit run down. But yeah, if you're wondering where it is, it's up these stairs. But we're already exiting, so we're just going down. This looks like a really cool New Year's decorations for some sort of concert that are currently being assembled. Nice. Today is an exceptionally cold day in Hanoi, and to be fair, I'm cold even in my Uniqlo winter jacket that I wear in London in winter. So.
While Ho Chi Minh City is hot all year long, Hanoi actually gets pretty chilly in winter, as we found out, but we were a bit unlucky because usually it is around 20 to 22 degrees in winter, but we were there during a cold blast, and the temperatures were as high as 13 or 14 degrees Celsius, which was pretty cold, I would say. And you might also think, how come there is such a huge difference between 2 cities in Vietnam, since Vietnam is not a big country? Well, Vietnam is actually a very large country, and you know that the distance between Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi is almost the same as the distance between London and Rome in Italy, and you can imagine that the weather in Rome and in London is pretty different. For dinner, we went to a restaurant called Dong's. We found it in a couple of ratings of the best restaurants in Hanoi. And honestly, everything was good, but it was a little bit overpriced. Our next destination was the famous train tracks cafe street, but we just missed one of the trains. Luckily, it wasn't the last train of the day. We still had a chance to walk around, take some pictures, and then wait for the next train to pass. I must admit that it was pretty crowded, so it was a bit difficult to take pictures, but eventually everybody got tired of taking pictures, so we also could take some. And then we picked one of the cafes to sit down and wait for the next train. I would say we were pretty lucky because we came there not knowing the schedule, and apparently the trains don't come too often. We saw not one, not two, but three trains. And the third one was a surprise cargo train, which nobody has expected and which wasn't even on the schedule, which we saw on the walls of the cafes there. If you come to visit, make sure to be very, very careful because the trains pass very close to the cafes. After seeing the trains, we went for a walk and saw this beautiful cathedral decorated for Christmas, and then went to the most beautiful lake in Hanoi, the Ho Chi Minh Lake. It's actually a protected area, and it's not allowed to build very tall buildings and skyscrapers around this lake to preserve the historical value of the area and not to ruin the views. The next day we spent in Halong Bay, but that's going to be a separate video. I'll just skip to the day after that. And we had a pretty terrible night at the hotel at La Sinfonia del Rey because it was extremely noisy and impossible to sleep. It was probably the noisiest place we've ever stayed in our entire lives, and it was such a pity because it was our wedding anniversary and we booked this lovely hotel to rest. We were just sleepy all day long in Halong Bay because we couldn't sleep there. And unfortunately, the hotel staff, they tried to bribe us into not writing a negative review, and they do it with all the guests who complain about the noise, and that's why the rating is so high. Unfortunately, if we knew it was so noisy, we would have never ever booked it. So if you have a chance, try to avoid this hotel. I would never recommend it to anyone. And let's go back to sightseeing in Hanoi. This is actually how one of the most eccentric areas of Hanoi looks like.
We finally found a part of the city that is closed for cars and bikes, and it's such a breath of fresh air because traffic in the city today on the 31st of December is absolutely mad. It's so nice to finally walk without the traffic.
The main and the most important celebration in Vietnam is the Lunar New Year.
But they also celebrate the Western New Year, the night between the 31st of December and the 1st of January. They also do celebrate Christmas, kind of a little bit, like not in a religious way, but it's a celebration. There are a lot of Christmas decorations and Christmas songs, a lot of Western Christmas songs. But I'm very curious to see what's going to happen time for New Year.
People in Vietnam really like coffee and coffee places. There are coffee places around every corner. They can be just next to each other.
The contrast of Vietnam. So there's Gucci and Hublot on one side, and there is the, I don't know, I'm not sure what it is like, but it looks like a art gallery dedicated to the party, to the Communist Party. Very interesting combination.
So this is actually a gallery and exposition dedicated to the anniversary, the 50th anniversary of eviction of the French from the south of Vietnam. We walked a little bit around the area of Hanoi Opera House. This is an upscale area with a lot of boutiques and expensive shops and some nice cafes and restaurants. We found yet another stage built for New Year celebrations, and this one looked very impressive. It looked like there's gonna be some sort of famous DJ performing there. We got a bit tired from all the walking and stopped by in a coffee place and had a very strong coffee. And then we decided to walk around the lake once again. Since it was closed for traffic, it was just a pleasure to walk around and it wasn't as noisy as always. We had a quick dinner in a sushi place overlooking a very busy square, and we saw in real time how this square was being closed off for traffic. We got back to the hotel. We were actually staying at the hotel called GM Marvel for our second night in Vietnam, and it was much better than La Sinfonia del Rey, and they had a very nice rooftop terrace which was open to hotel guests for the New Year celebrations. We had to buy a ticket, but it wasn't too expensive, and it was a really nice celebration actually. It was way more fun than I expected. At around midnight, we decided to venture out to the city center to see how the celebration is going in the city center. And we sadly realized that all the festivities have finished and the stage is already being disassembled, the trash is being picked up, and the vendors are selling out their remaining food. Since Hanoi is a city that pretty much never sleeps, I expected a little bit more from the celebration of the New Year, but it looked very family friendly, so I understand that.
Everybody is playing some sort of game where they are kicking a feather. I just not sure which one. That's feather. The 1st of January, it's 11 a.m. We finally got out of the hotel. Of course, we went to sleep late yesterday because we celebrated New Year. Today we have only 3 hours to explore the rest of Hanoi, and we're gonna go to the places we haven't explored before and do a little bit of sightseeing because there are a lot of important landmarks where we're going now.
But first, breakfast. We decided to grab something quickly in a local bakery, and everything looked amazing.
Today is a really warm day. Finally, it's actually above 20 degrees and we don't need to wear a winter jacket anymore. It's sunny, so it feels amazing. Honestly, such a good start of the year. In the middle of the Lenin garden, you can find a huge monument of Lenin and a sign saying Happy New Year.
This part of the city has a lot of important museums and attractions. It's located a little bit kind of to the west from the lake and the town part where all the tourists stay. There are a lot of colonial era buildings that are pretty beautiful and they're in great condition. There are also monuments like this flag tower, which is part of the military museum, which you can visit. We didn't have much time, so we could only visit the Imperial Citadel and the Mausoleum.
The tickets cost 30,000 per person.
The Imperial Citadel is a UNESCO heritage site. The actual citadel was finished in the year 1011, so it's an ancient building, but unfortunately most of it didn't survive until our days. A lot of it was destroyed during the French colonial era. It was demolished to make space for offices and barracks by French, and the only pieces of citadel that are remaining are the North Gate, is the one that you're seeing now, and the flag tower. But the Imperial Citadel was a grand building, as you can imagine, and it was the seat of the Vietnamese court up until the year 1811, when the capital was actually moved from Hanoi to another city, to the city called Hue. The territory of the citadel is actually huge. You can easily spend an hour or even two just walking around the territory, but it feels somewhat empty. Of course there are buildings, but some of them look a little bit out of place because they were built during the French colonial era, but there are some sort of nice buildings like this one that looks very beautiful. After visiting the citadel, we went to a cafe called Kong, which quickly became my absolutely favorite cafe in the entire Hanoi. And I had a really nice pearl milk tea, and Pepe had a salted kumquat tea.
So we finally got to the Ho Chi Minh Mausoleum in Hanoi, and it is actually built after the mausoleum built for Lenin in Moscow. So we're just gonna go ahead and come closer.
It took us almost 25 minutes to get there from the Imperial Citadel because you need to surround it to be able to enter, because there are only two entrances on the sides of the mausoleum, and even though you can pretty much see it from the Imperial Citadel, the front entrance is not open for tourists. it was already time for us to go back to the hotel and pick up our luggage and head to the airport. So we asked for a taxi, and while in a taxi we passed some beautiful streets with a lot of stunning colonial era buildings and mansions. They looked like villas, detached villas. They looked very, very impressive. Then we picked up our luggage and headed to the airport, ready for our next destination.
It's time for us to actually leave Vietnam and embark on the next adventure, which is Laos. So the next vlog will be from Laos. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found some things useful. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs